Hey friends, haven't really posted that much on the channel these past 2 months, and that's very obvious because the state of the game. This is an article, I presume, by Joe Blackburn, and I am going to react to it today. I'm not going to read everything verbatim. I'm going to start off with a wish list of what I wish was there because I haven't read it yet. And I think what I'm wishing for will give you a great idea of what kind of player I am and why I play Destiny 2 and what some of the pain points are, and I hope to compare them to the article. Now, I don't expect any or all of them to be there, but it would be a nice surprise to see any of them. So the format of today's video is going to be talk about the wish list, then I'm going to skim the state of the game, I'm going to post-edit, summarize what was said there, and then give my real-time reactions. So, without further ado, let's start with the wish list. At the top of my wish list, by the way, it's just going to be ship floating in the background. No heavy editing on this one. You're probably doing dishes as you watch this video, so let's just do that. So first one is dynamic matchmaking, which means that when there's a low population, it sort of widens the band of what is searchable so you can get a quicker, better match faster. Because otherwise, it'll try to search for 9 minutes when that same game could have been done in 2 minutes. So dynamic matchmaking broke matchmaking earlier in the season, so they had to turn it off. But for like OCE across the world, that type of thing, it is a night and day difference. No pun intended for that one. So dynamic matchmaking, team balancing, skill-based matchmaking quality, anti-cheat, quitter penalties, mercy rule, and duo queue all equally contribute to matches that were not worth playing out because the end result is obvious to all the participants within about a minute. Then to add insult to injury, the matchmaking searches the full 10 minutes to either mongoose me or throw me in the same or a similar match. So I'd love the option to wait longer for a better matchmaking experience. Did you know Halo had this feature? It's also imperative that all the variables I just mentioned are adjusted more frequently to both protect new lights and to keep what I call Skill Island worth coming back to every day. So my wish list is in order from what I think the most important is to the least important, even though all the issues on there are very important. The next, I also should say I'm trying to advocate for like the population growing, not for just my most specific wishes. Because if I got exactly what I wanted as an endgame PvP player, but none of the other stuff was added, we'd have a dead population, therefore I wouldn't have anybody to PvP against. So, food for thought. The next wish list is going to be a revamped and useful new light experience. There needs to be better tutorial style missions and prompts that teach the following: UI navigation, progression path, basic weapon subclass practice that incentivizes learning interactions versus high density mobs, champions, and simple boss rotations. And they need to be weaved into tutorial style mission list on the Guardian ranks. They sort of experimented with this. I think they need to full send it with a full-fledged tutorial system, because as it current stands, the new light is you play Wipeout and then you're thrown off a cliff in terms of just not knowing what to do to progress to endgame. Like seriously, I make free-to-play new light accounts and I have done everything in the game, and yet I am still stumped on what to do sometimes to progress. It's just not obvious whatsoever. Now, on the subject of PvE, I think I would like it to be more dangerous and faster paced, more akin to action RPG in the game. And they have had elements of that in the past, but it's always dependent on the power scaling of our Guardian compared to the enemy. At a certain point in Reckoning, we were so powerful that the only way they could realistically kill us was by knocking us off the map. A great one to point to right now is the Moon Battleground Grandmaster Nightfall. I kind of like where the combat difficulty is, just not how it scales to our Guardian. Ideally, I'd like our Guardian to be a little less powerful and have the Moon Battleground a little less BS so it's more readable and masterful, but maybe it's also a skill issue there. Regardless, this can happen through a combination of balance passes, reworks, and content evolution. An example of evolution is like the Wyvern and the Hive Guardians. I think the Tormentor was a bad enemy added to the game. Throughout the whole game, I'd like to see more meaningful options like contest mode, just so I can have the option to have extra difficulty to keep the content more interesting to me, for no other reason. Also to practice for day ones. That would be pretty cool. So ultimately, the route I'd like to see Bungie go with PvE is to make more roguelike experiences that allow for Grandmasters to be fun for holding streaks and prove mastery of the game, because you're able to hold a bigger streak than someone else because you were able to think on the fly and adjust with the modifiers, random weapons, whatever is thrown at you. That's like the future I see for Destiny PvE that makes me excited to log on and play it beyond just getting like a Conqueror seal once and being like, well, I played the GM. Now it's easy. Okay, next one is, believe it or not, I'm going to say Gambit. I think the idea of Gambit is super fresh in the FPS landscape, and although it has definitely failed with how many times they've tried to revamp it, I still think it is an incredible game mode. It just hasn't been executed properly. So, hear me out. When they left Gambit alone, I think that was the best thing to happen to Gambit, because a meta emerged and the remaining Gambit players come up with layers of counterplay, which ultimately made it fun to play. And it still is fun to play when you're playing competent teams. There's just a lot of red tape and things that need to maybe be ironed out, but the core game, believe it or not, they could leave it alone, and I think it would be fine. Here's a way I can summarize it. When Gambit is balanced to make 3 games a week less painful to someone who doesn't want to be there, it risks becoming uninteresting to someone who wants to be there. So if they are going to add something, against my wishes, I would say they should bring back Prime armor sets and really just choose an audience. You don't want to have it a 50-50 mishmash of casual and elite players. You want one for either and build 100 and 0 into it. It is okay to have a competitive setting. It is okay to have a casual setting, a Fiesta playlist. It's not okay to make it the 50-50 mishmash. It's just a bad experience for everybody when the matchmaking doesn't know what to do with them. My personal opinion. So anyway, if they're going to touch Gambit, Prime armor sets with more bonuses and hybrid bonuses for mixing the sets. The invasion portal should be variable, and there should be better spawn logic. The invader armor set should give you a choice of like blocking the bank, a better shield, wall hacks, power ammo, and invasion time. You should have to choose between different qualities of all of those, not have the best quality of all of those, like I guess we would currently have, if that makes sense. Then you follow that theme for balancing among the other roles and the armor combos in Gambit. That to me is like a solid start to revamping Gambit. I'm sure if you go to like a Gambit Discord though, they could have really specific written out ideas that are way better than anything I could come up in like a minute. So, moving on, the next one is going to be Guardian ranks, which just recently got added, but already need a major overhaul with how badly they were implemented at first. They're pretty close to pointless, to be clear. I think they need to tie in with a better tutorial system on the low end, while being a credibility check and a specialization flex at the higher end. Really, the only question seeing an 11 poses is like, did you cheese the dungeon last season? This tells me nothing about the quality of play. One thing I want to be very clear on, I'm not wanting meaningful Guardian ranks so I can be toxic in LFG and not play with people. It's so when I see a number, I know exactly how much I need to accommodate and how fast or slow I need to play to accommodate. Like, if I see what could be like a rank 100 or whatever the maxed out rank is, they've done every accolade in the game and they did it the fastest and the best, I'm gonna cut the pleasantries and start talking speedrun terms right off the rip because I know that they will understand it. Okay, moving on. PvE reward structure. Believe it or not, I actually like the harder activities in the game, like the Moon Battleground. But the incentive to do them makes 0 sense from a time investment point of view. So if Grandmaster Nightfall A takes 15 minutes and gives the same reward as Grandmaster Nightfall B, which takes 9 minutes, you just wait for B. To make matters worse, the random drop weapons in the game are still rarely targetable in a way that a player can walk away with something close to what they initially wanted. Now, we have had strides towards making this a reality with like the vendors giving triple perks and that sort of thing. And there can still be other methods to curb RNG beyond just making the whole game craftable, by the way. Basically, Bungie really needs to allow players to trade their time and effort into tangible forward progress towards a really fun build. There are just so many bottlenecks to playstyles that seem really fun, and once you calculate the RNG, you realize you will never get them. Not like a perfect min-max version, but like the bare bones building parts of the build. You just will never see it. Okay, finally, this is like more of my wheelhouse, PvP balance. And I'm almost done with the wish list too, so I put my own wants closer to the bottom just so you can see how I rank this. So for PvP balance, it's not frequent enough to make the live service model feel alive. I'm not asking for weekly meta oscillations, I'm asking for half-year pain points or more to be addressed sooner. I think it's a fault of the balancing scheme where they sort of wait around for concrete evidence rather than taking more frequent risks to prevent a stale and inevitable obvious meta. Ultimately, they need to be more clear on what their balance target is for the Guardian's power level. I'll no doubt give credit where credit's due for wonderful changes. For example, the idea to decouple Zoom, it's incredible. The idea to restrict sword hilting in competitive, that was absolutely necessary. The perk design of Hawkmoon and Revision Zero, they're great examples of an accessible yet potent and masterful design for the player to initially use and feel usable, but then to later use against some of the best teams in the game in a very impactful way that doesn't feel broken. So, I can give credit where credit's due. Bottom line, though, is PvP balance just hasn't felt great. I can think of Target Lock, perk introduction. They've sort of taken a slow approach to getting it where it needs to go, and I can commend that, right? Because, like I said, no meta oscillations. But at the same time, that one just seemed way too hot from the get-go. They could even change the text to body shot, and I would still find it valuable if I never knew what the original was like. But now that I've seen the original, I think just turn it to body shot and just let it be a quality of life perk instead of an absolute necessity to the top level players. But I'll move on. I just wanted to give it an example. Okay, the competitive playlist is my second to last one on this wish list, but it's still an important bullet point nonetheless. So I dislike how weak the max rank is. So what is max rank? It is Ascendant 1. The high skill representation is just not obvious enough here. We get noobs all the time that just ruin the matchmaking because whoever gets the noob loses. It's not a matter of can you carry. You can't carry. I promise you. It is your teammate's fault. It's just the representation for the top players aren't there. And the reality is, if it was, you would be searching 40 minutes, which isn't feasible in this low population. I'd be okay with them making more strict matchmaking at the cost of queue time, but assuming that they have to nail the future map and mode balance with the under-the-hood SPMM adjustment balance for how much rank you gain and lose, while also later adding like a leaderboard or some reason to go beyond this. That's bare minimum for comp to me. The next thing is cosmetics. While that's not important to me whatsoever, if it bolsters the population, I think they should do it too. The final thing on my wish list is just more MMO qualities and social features. For example, like make the tower a social hangout instead of a place to just teabag in place at the Cryptarch. And that's my wish list. So without further ado, I'm going to have real fun editing this. I'm just going to start skimming now. Okay, so they're adding more maps and modes into the future of PvP. I think that addresses some of the wish list type things. But one thing that came to mind when I saw a picture of this map is at some point the lighting engine changed in PvP, and it made some maps and lanes that were previously challengeable just a really bad idea because you get literally flashbang for just choosing to look in your opponent's direction. Okay, I'm going to read this entire one verbatim because this is quite possibly the most important part so far for the future of my channel. This is Checkmate. Checkmate's a modifier where rich primary weapon fights can happen more often, and the gun skill can be augmented by communication and strong positioning. I'm pausing for effect there. It's like what I value about the game all the way from the beginning. Bungie thought it was the most skill intensive. They agreed. Let's move on. Primary weapon damage has been tuned to feel different than the rest of the game without being jarring, reducing the gap between the faster killing weapons and the average time to kill, and generally pushing longer range primaries into slower killing profiles. Player health has also been increased, all ability cooldowns are lengthened, and special ammo must be earned via gameplay and is not dropped on death. This all results in slightly longer combat encounters that reward skill and consistency. Checkmate will be available in Crucible Labs from week 5 to 10. We'll start off with 2 weeks of Checkmate Control, then switch it up with 2 weeks of Checkmate Survival, and finally 2 weeks of Checkmate Rumble to finish off its trial run for Season 22. I am, almost lost my voice there, kind of burp-like thing. I don't know. Regardless, I can't contain my excitement. Or the Taco Bell from last night. I didn't have Taco Bell. But jokes aside, this is what I'm most excited about. But I have some worries right off the rip. I forget if it was a podcast mention that hand cannons are pretty much going to retain their time to kill, which doesn't make sense compared to the other archetypes. I already think hand cannons are some of the best, barring, of course, like Immortal SMG in the right range. Even playing against Immortal teams, though, if I have a triple, like, cracked out M&K hand cannon team, I'm more effective using that than the SMG. So how do they make that balance in a way that makes me care about other weapons? I don't know if they can. And then another thing that just irks the shit out of me is seeing special ammo must be earned via gameplay, because it's going to create a situation where I have to have one very specific primary weapon that's limited in ranges instead of having 2 primary weapons that can complement their distances, where I have a long weapon and a close weapon, but then I'm missing out on medium, where I'm able to cover 2 out of 3 ranges very consistently. And if the special ammo has to be earned, wouldn't I just be having an empty special weapon for most of the game and then be restricted to these extremely specific lanes that might not be conducive to something like control? So you understand what I'm getting at. What if there was a third weapon slot where you could have like a shotgun or a sniper rifle or something and then earn ammo with that third weapon slot? That way more of the map is playable. Some food for thought. And for those who understand the joke, yes, I'm literally saying this is a mode that tries to emulate the early Destiny 2, Season 1, Season 2, Season 3 feel, where the game was, for real, more skillful. May not have been more popular, but now we have these holes in the current form of Destiny 2 that might not allow this to thrive in the way it deserves to. So, how can they maybe fix those holes? Maybe the answer is to put shotguns and sniper rifles in the power ammo slot and not allow pulls from like rocket, grenade launcher, etc., or tune those individually to be like barely impactful whatsoever. One of those. Okay, reading on. There is a chance, though, that Checkmate is what I focus 100% of my channel content on, and I ignore the rest of PvP. Because if they do this right, I will have no need to play any other PvP mode. This, to me, just is for my kind of player. So they are adding, the Relic mode is like a party mode. So they've just hit the opposite. Checkmate, hyper hardcore. Relic, casual fun. Yes, more of this. Huge, they get it. Okay, so on my wish list, I put the matchmaking things on, and they did touch on a couple of those points. Not going to go into it. I think they can do better. But we'll have to see exactly what they mean by this when we see it in the game. I've had to reread this Gambit section like 4 or 5 times. And what I'm understanding is they're adding maps. And the enemy type within the map is changing. Cool. I did say in the wish list that a hands-off approach might be the best approach at this point. So let's just wait and see. I mean, you can't kill something that's already dead, right? Right? Nah, I am buying this game security one. Cheating's rampant right now. I hope they do better in the future, but this external accessibility tools policy is not specific enough. Why are there still Zimmers running around? Why am I not sure if I'm allowed to macro or not? They need to be so clear on these things. And I remember it was like a Grenader Jake tweet that says, why can't they hire one person to just watch the streams and instantly just banhammer the obvious no discussion type cheating on the spot? Apparently, it's like $1 million plus investment into game security, and at the very least, you can't have the goodwill of your dedicated trials community with just one person to manually work on those bans. I'm not saying go full like player moderator status, but they need to do a lot better than this fluff here. So I haven't read beyond this seasonal structure paragraph. I didn't even think to put seasonal structure in the wish list because I play the game anyway, regardless of seasonal activities or something new. It's not the seasonal structure that brings me back, therefore it's not important. What brings me back to the game is this right here. And then it's going, well, what if I could use something fun? Or better in there? What if being able to shoot through flinch makes me more effective and competitive? Maybe I can hit the fabled 5-finger fillet with the last word in the control playlist. That's what brings me back. Not, sorry, I was supposed to click the home there. Not the deep dive. Yeah, I'm gonna go do this so it can go away in a season or whatever it is. Or salvage. I haven't done much of these, but I hear deep dive kind of gets that roguelike experience that I think they need to, I wanted to say delve deeper into in future iterations, but I'm just envisioning like a perfect version of Prison of Elders mixed with current deep dives, but I have to experience it more. I just haven't really had the time to go in beyond making content for my videos, so I will explore that in the future. Yo, shader favoriting. I'm gonna use the hell out of that. There's like 4 shaders I frequently use, and I hate having to scroll all the way to season 1. Yo, Iron Banner Challenge no longer requires being on that specific subclass. Let's go. I can play the way I want to play instead of how the game tells me to. Wait. I feel like I read this wrong, but it really does say new strand aspects despite us just getting new strand aspects. So the whirling, that word for hunter, the whirling dervish, banner of war for titans, and weave lock for warlocks. Wait a second. Ain't no way. We just got a threaded specter, which, by the way, I have a bone to pick with the way this one made it into the game. I have a bone to pick with Strand overall. Hunter Strand is incredibly potent, and then the other two are clunky, still pretty good, but it pales in comparison to Hunter. Hunter quite literally ripped the limiter off the skill ceiling, and then the other two are like, we're green flavored. It just doesn't compare. So I hope that these new Strand... Oh no, I lost my place. Okay, I have some mixed feelings on this bullet point right here. Bringing the challenge back to Destiny. Oh man, how that was memed on, because they immediately backpedaled the last time they said that. I think I'm an anomaly on this one. My definition of challenge is very, very, very different from what I think the devs mean. And I don't know what more to say on that. I just don't think it's a realistic metric to hit. So I'm gonna be realistic here. It could say literally anything about challenge in Destiny, and I'm not going to believe it because of just the history of the game so far. However, something that I do want to appreciate is that they won't raise the power level cap in Season 22. That has been a godsend for playing with my more casual Destiny friends because they can just do the in-game activities without having to be like, oh, I gotta grind for 4 weeks to be able to contribute in that activity. Well, I guess I'm not playing. We're able to just play. I know that other endgame players are saying the opposite happens with their friend group, where they don't have a reason to do pinnacles, which is a weekly ritual for their friend group, so that they don't hang out as much. But like, honestly, man, that one's in your head. This one is literally making more time in your day to do what's important to you. I think this is a major W. Craftable Dead Man's Tale. Yes, that is my most used weapon besides the last word, as you can imagine why. Hipfire weapons I just literally aim better with, even if they don't register better. So, overall, better weapon for me, better ingredients. I don't know why I'm on a fast... whatever. Hold up, Pathfinder UI. I kind of like this. On my wish list, I was saying the new light experience. This is looking good. I like that. Also, on that same subject, making big changes to the progression system that will help connect more players and remove barriers. Yes, let's go. I was just saying that's a major W, and they're even doing more to that type of thing. Huge. I love it. Now that I have skimmed the whole thing, I think I'm just whelmed. It's kind of what I thought was gonna be there. I tempered my expectations a lot. Yes, my wish list was grandiose, but I think this is about exactly what I expected at this point. So you're probably going to listen to another content creator just read all this verbatim. I'm not going to go crazy. Link will be in the description. And I think I might hang out at GuardianCon a little bit this weekend. So if there's even less videos than usual, that's probably why. I appreciate y'all for hanging out with me with Destiny's ups and downs. And I love this game. I'm going to keep playing this game even when it's bad. It's just that simple. I just like the game. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.